I have no doubt that you guys have prayed in light of the midterms that you're about to have. I hope you've already have conducted them. If you have not, I encourage you at this time, go ahead and pause your video. And after praying one for another, I pray that you will go ahead and start taking the Old Testament midterm. And then upon finishing, go ahead and restart the video. But having finished the midterm, we're going to go ahead and grade these midterms together. So I'm going to ask at this time that you would take your midterm and you will pass it to your right, and we're going to go ahead and grade these together. We're going to look at the first page that deals with the creation week. This has to be in order. This has to be in exact order. And so first day is that he created light. Second day is the upper and lower waters or firmament, or I'll take any of those. Day 3 is the plants. Day 4, he created the sun, moon, and stars. Day 5, it's the birds and marine life. Day 6 is land animals and man. The 10 plagues of Egypt, again, they have to be in order. The first is the Nile to blood, water to blood. Second is the frogs. Third is the lice. 4 is flies. 5 is the disease on cattle. And 6 is the boils. 7 is the hail and fire. 8 is locusts. 9 is darkness. And then 10 is the death of the firstborn. Now, this again has to be exact, word for word. So I'm going to kind of slowly state each one of these words that have to be word for Genesis 3:15. So here we go. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. And so if they miss a word, or they put an extra word, just put a mark to it. I will probably have to go back over these and grade them myself. So just make the appropriate marks for each one of these. Don't try and score them. And with that, we have the 10 Commandments. Again, these are in order. The first one is, you shall have no other gods before me. The second is that of no graven images. The third, you shall not take the Lord thy God, his name in vain. 4 is honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. 5 is honor thy father and thy mother. 6 is thou shalt not murder. 7 is thou shalt not commit adultery. Number 8 is thou shalt not steal. 9, you shall not lie or bear false witness. Number 10, you shall not covet. Go ahead and go to the next page. We have the 39 books of the Old Testament, and again, they have to be in order. So we'll start off with Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. And those are your 39 books of the Old Testament. And there you see you have your bonus questions. If you get them right, you get 2 extra points apiece. And so, who wrote the book of Lamentations? And that would be Jeremiah. Who wrote 1st and 2nd Kings? Again, it would be Jeremiah. Who wrote 1st and 2nd Chronicles? That would be Ezra. And who wrote Genesis through Deuteronomy? And that would be that of Moses. Okay? Now, that's going to be important for later. Whenever we go through the divided kingdom, who wrote what? Because Jeremiah writes before the captivity, and Ezra writes after the captivity. And so, just a little food for thought right there. All right, so let's go ahead. We're only going to spend about 5 minutes because I know that she's probably spent a good bit of time on class. And we're going to look at the divided kingdom for just a brief moment. We're not even going to get past Rehoboam. We're just going to look at this, and we're going to look at the early days of the divided kingdom. Solomon names his son Rehoboam as successor. Solomon dies, and Rehoboam goes to Shechem to be anointed king. And the people come there, and they kind of have a special request before they anoint him king. And they requested that Rehoboam would lighten up on the taxes, on the load of the work that Solomon had made them do. And Rehoboam wisely does something. He says, obviously the wisdom of his father is apparent here when he says, go away and I will tell you my answer tomorrow. And then afterward, he sought counsel. Now this is some really great advice here. When we ask for advice and we seek godly counsel, he sought out Solomon's counselors. Now, what's significant about Solomon's counselors is they had no skin in the game. This is what made them so objectionable. They could tell Rehoboam exactly what needed to happen, and they advised that he would do what the people ask and that he would consent to be not so harsh and lighter on the taxes and ease and have a little bit of easement on those things. But then he went and he sought counsel again. Now that's nothing wrong with asking a second opinion. But then he asked the opinion of people that did have skin in the game, and that was his friends. He sought the counsel of people that were younger or as young as he was, and that did not have the same experience, knowledge, or wisdom that Solomon's counselors had, who had ran a country and done so wisely. He asked for their input, and they said, "This is what you should tell him." He says, "My father afflicted you, or he gave you stripes. I will torture you with scorpions." And he basically says that my pinky's going to be thicker than my daddy's waist. And he's basically saying, he did it tough, I'm going to do it even tougher. I'm going to make your taxes even more. I'm going to do and when the people came back, the counsel that he chose to go with, he went with his friend's counsel, and of course, the 10 tribes went to Jeroboam. Now, it's one of those things. It was prophesied that he was going to lose the kingdom anyway. And it's kind of a hard thing. Probably wouldn't have mattered too much. But you still gain a principle here and understanding when you ask for godly counsel. Do they have experience in this matter? Do they know what they're talking about? Do they have any skin in this decision that you make? Like if you decide to go a certain way, do they stand a profit in it? And that's why it's so important to seek godly counsel and godly wisdom and ask yourself these questions, the criteria of which you're asking these questions. Sometimes you don't need to ask a friend. A friend is looking out for your emotional well-being, and sometimes that needs to be set aside, because someone needs to tell you what you need to hear despite your feelings, and that may be difficult. And it may require you, when you seek counsel, not to speak of yourself, but speaking as if you were speaking on behalf of a third party, so that you'll get an objectionable response. Just things like that. But he had listened to the counsel of his brethren, his friends, and because of that, the kingdom was split. Solomon's sinful departure from following God, the jealousy of the other tribes, because what was happening is he was mounting up all these taxes, and all the money was going to Jerusalem. And who was in charge of the Jerusalem area was that of the tribe of Judah. And so it was like they were taking up taxes on these other tribes and enriching Judah as a result of it. And so there became a jealousy because they would build up the defense cities for Judah, but there would be no money spent on their cities. And so there became it became political unrest because of that, but also because Solomon, when he negotiated with the king of Tyre concerning the timber and for certain political favors, but also for the building of the temple and all that. He gave some of the northern cities of Israel as a trade for those things, and he did it for political favors and to pay a political debt. And actually, that again did not sit well with the children of Israel either. Rehoboam of Judah and Jeroboam of Israel. This is where you have the separate governments. They shared the same religion, and Jeroboam knew that because they shared the same religion and everyone had to worship at the singular spot as Jerusalem, he knew it would be only a matter of time before the hearts of the people would want to go back to Judah. And so what he did, and to secure his throne and to secure his power, he sought to he sought and invited them to worship another god. And if you think about it, it had history. The golden calves. You think back whenever Moses went up to the mountain, they made them a golden calf, and that's exactly what we see the same sin. And it could be because Jeroboam spent some time down there in Egypt whenever he was in political exile, and that played an influence in him. But mostly he did this to keep them from reuniting with their brethren during these Jewish feasts, which they would have to go down to Jerusalem to celebrate. And so he makes a religion of convenience by placing two golden calves, one at the southern end and one at the northern end of his domain. And Jeroboam, when it comes to the coming judgment that was going to fall upon Israel, Jeroboam is often referred to as the king that made Israel sin. And with that, we'll stop and we'll be jumping in to the divided kingdom when we come back next week. So here's your quiz for next week. It's going to be a difficult one, okay? And if you asked it, and this is a bit out of order, and if y'all took this quiz instead, this one is the one that will stand, not the other one. It says week 9 on it, and this is what you have to do is you have to list all the kings of Judah, and you need to do it so in order. All right, and if you want to get a good list of that, I believe it's in your. I know it's in your textbook, and there's a list, and it'll show the kings of Israel on one side and the kings of Judah on the other side. You need to know the kings of Judah, and eventually we'll look at the kings of Israel. But right now, for next week's quiz, you need to list the kings of Judah in order, if at all possible, in order. And there are, if you need to know, there are 20 kings. So there's a good number. So with that, I pray that you've done well. I pray that you're pleased. I pray that you were satisfied with the grade that or how well you did on the midterm. And guys, we're still pouring the coals on. We've still got 6 more weeks of instruction still left. And with that, we will see you guys next week. Godspeed.